Hello peeps, welcome back to Big Deck Playa. I am your host, Matt Sparks, and today in Hearthstone we are looking at a Mage deck. Today's deck has been submitted by Tiber EZPK. I'm not quite sure how you'd pronounce that, but I'm going to refer to him as Tiber because that'd be easier. And this is a Mage deck. He's named it the Very High MMR Blast deck. I'm just calling it the MMR Blast because that's a lot easier. MMR stands for Matchmaking Ranking, so it's all to do with ranking up and being a good deck for ranking up. Now I have played this deck. I played this deck a lot yesterday to get some practice in, and I think I won 10 of 12 games. About 10 of 12 games. So I lost 2 games in 12. That's not bad at all, is it really? And this is a Diamond 1 star, so that's pretty good. Now the deck itself, let's go and have a look at that, shall we? Where is it? There it is. Okay, so the deck itself has quite a lot of spells. I've made one alteration to the build that he's put on Hearthstone itself. He's put Blood Mage Thalnos in, which, if you remember from, I think it was the Warlock video, the Warlock Rush deck video, I don't actually have Blood Mage Thalnos. I still don't have it. So instead, I have put in Malygos. Now, most games, if Malygos comes into my hand, most of the time I don't even play him. It depends on who you're up against, really, as to whether you should play him or not. Against other mages, quite often he'll get polymorphed if they haven't used both their polymorphs already. Or even still, like, if they've still got both their fireballs could get rid of him. A pyroblast and like something else could get rid of him. So he's not invulnerable, and playing him on turn 9 against a priest is generally a bad idea unless they've used both of their mind controls already, because giving a priest a +5 spell damage, if they've got the spell that does 5 damage to the hero, then you're essentially doubling that, which is not good. So the +5 damage is nice if you can safely get him out without there being any problems. This is why in some circumstances I guess you could say that Blood Mage Thalnos is a better card, because it's only a 2 cost. You can get it out pretty much whenever. And although it's only got 1 attack and 1 HP, it's only really there for the extra spell power before you play something else. Really, I mean, you could save it for turn 10. You could put a Blood Mage Thalnos down and then Pyroblast, and then you get 11 damage. And if he kills off your Blood Mage Thalnos, you get a card out of it. So, if you've got the Blood Mage Thalnos, feel free to put it in instead of the Malygos. But I don't, so that's why Malygos is there. Okay, so let's have a look at the creatures first. So we start off at the low end with 2 Mana Worms, which every time you cast a spell, they gain 1 attack. I had a game last night where I had 2 of these on the board, and they survived until turn... I got one out on turn 1 and the other one out on turn 2, and they survived until turn 6, by which point I pretty much won the game. I think my opponent had like 6 health. So these can be really effective if they don't get rid of them. Okay, the next ones are 2 Fairy Dragons. Now, you could put, what's the card? The Sorcerer's Apprentice. You could put Sorcerer's Apprentice in instead of the Fairy Dragon, because this got essentially the same stats. The only problem with that is Sorcerer's Apprentice are generally bullet magnets, and because they've only got 2 health, they die very quickly. Fairy Dragons cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers, which generally makes them a little bit more survivable, if that's a word. It basically means that it's a little bit more difficult for your opponent to get rid of them. So it's just there for a little bit of extra damage and just to cause your opponent a little bit of problem, because they can't necessarily get rid of them as quickly as they could a Sorcerer's Apprentice. A Sorcerer's Apprentice would be more beneficial to you because you've got a lot of spells in the deck, but just in general, when I find that whenever I've played a Sorcerer's Apprentice, they either get silenced or they get killed straight away, in which case it's pretty much pointless, because the whole reason you'd want a Sorcerer's Apprentice is for the spell cost reduction. Okay, so let's move on. So we've got some extra spell damage in the form of the Kobold Geomancer and the Ogre Magi, the Azure Drake. We've got 2 of each of those, and then 1 Archmage. Archmages are great because they're at that special 4 attack I've mentioned before against priests. In fact, this deck in general is pretty good against priests because your Ogre Magi are 4 attack, your Azure Drake are 4 attack, and the Archmage is 4 attack, which means priests have a bit of difficulty in getting rid of them. Because they can't use their Shadow Word Pain or their Shadow Word Death unless they buff them somehow, which there's nothing to buff them in there, so they're pretty good cards. So in the way of spells and removal, we have 2 Arcane Missiles. Now, Arcane Missiles early game when you've got the 2 Mana Worms out can be really beneficial, because you can get you can play an Arcane Missiles. In fact, you could play a Mana Worm turn 1, and if you're lucky, like I was yesterday, you can play 2 Arcane Missiles turn 2, which means your Mana Worm then is a 3/3, and that's only turn 2. That's pretty effective. And then we've got stuff like Arcane Explosion, which when I first started using this deck, I didn't actually use that spell very often. I didn't really find that I had much use for it, but last night I was using it quite a lot, especially when you have spell power minions on the board. It is really effective. You get a Kobold Geomancer out first, and then you use your Arcane Explosion, and then stuff like Sorcerer's Apprentice that has 2 health, Fairy Dragons that have 2 health, Kobold Geomancers have 2 health. They all die, and it's great. Okay, so we've got a little bit of card draw in the form of Arcane Intellect. Arcane Intellect also buffs the Mana Worms, bear that in mind. And then we've got stuff like Cone of Cold, which does 1 damage and freezes stuff. I think it affects up to 3. So you need to be careful, because sometimes I've seen players use this against me when I've been playing other decks. And if I've got a row of 3 creatures, they've done it on the very end one, which means the other one isn't frozen. So if you don't want to take any damage at all, then you need to bear that in mind when using Cone of Cold, because it only affects adjacent minions to the one that you're placing it on. So it's you have to be careful when you're using that you get the placement correct. 2 Fireballs, standard for any mage deck really. 2 Polymorphs, again standard. 2, we already looked at that one. The water elementals, I didn't mention that previously. These are really good if you're facing warriors and paladins that have weapons, because I've got no way of getting rid of weapons. There's no acidic oozes in this deck. So hitting the hero with a water elemental freezes them, which is really useful, because then I've skipped over one. Yeah, sorry. I just realised I skipped over a spell. It freezes them in place, so it means that they can't attack. Speaking of which, this is why I'd forgotten. Frostbolts, which deals 3 damage and freezes them. Now, 3 damage and a freeze for 2 mana is really good. And it's really useful, especially if they've got a big creature on the board and you have no way of getting rid of it that turn. Using a Frostbolt on it means it can't attack, which essentially means that you don't need to worry about it for the rest of that turn, and then you have to worry about it for the following turn. Plus it does 3 damage, and if you can get a spell power minion or spell damage minion on the board at the same time, then that suddenly becomes quite effective. What else we got? We've got Flame Strike. We've only got the 1 Flame Strike, so you have to be very careful as to when you use it. But again, coupled with some spell damage minions, this can be really, really awesome. And finally, to wrap it off, 2 Pyroblasts. Now, the best thing about the Pyroblast is even if you've only got 1 in your hand, essentially means if you can get them down to 10 health, you've probably won. Because even if they put a taunt up, doesn't matter, because that will kill it. That will kill the enemy hero without having to worry about whether they've got taunts or not. The only thing you have to worry about is whether they heal themselves. If you have 2 Pyroblasts in your hand, then this effectively you only need to worry if they're at 20 health. Provided you can use one turn and one the other without dying yourself, you should be good to go. This is a very strong deck in my experience, and I've probably rambled on about the deck itself for too long, so let's get into a game and see how we get on.
Jaina versus Jaina.
You asked for it. My magic will tear you apart.
Okay, so we're playing against a Mage, which is not ideal. And we're going first, which again is not ideal. I would have preferred to have gone second, and we've got really not good cards in our starting hand, so let's get rid of all of those and hope that we get something a little bit better in our starting hand. A little bit better. Alright, let's give him a greetings. Right, well, we don't have the mana worms, which is not good start, because that's a great way to start the game. But we don't have them, so I can't do anything about that. I was kind of hoping we weren't going to come up against another Mage. I don't like playing deck like for like, if I can avoid it. Okay, well, let's get the Kobold Geomancer out. There we go. I think next turn we'll probably just Arcane Intellect and hit him for 2 with the Kobold Geomancer. I'm kind of thinking maybe I shouldn't have put the Kobold Geomancer out, and maybe I should have just hit him with a Fire Blast. But it's good to get some early pressure on. Yeah, is he playing a 3 cost?
Let the pain speak to me.
An Acolyte of Pain. Okay, interesting. Okay, well, let's use this now. Draw the 2 cards, because we could do with some better cards. And we'll just hit him for 2. So he's probably going to hit himself into this for 2 damage, get the card draw, and then I would probably imagine he'll ping it with his Fire Blast for 1 as well and get rid of that minion. That's what I would do, but he might play a card. He's playing a card, which means he might not be able... Oh no, he's playing a secret. Interesting. Secrets could be anything, really. I think the best course of action for me right now is to just hit him with the Kobold Geomancer, because it could be something that gets triggered from being attacked. So I want to kind of... I've got nothing to buff any of my minions, so okay. Well, it could be a mirror entity then. In which case, I probably don't want to play any of my actual... Or it could be a counter spell. That's a possibility too. I think for now I'm probably just going to ping this guy for 2. For 1, sorry. 2 mana, 1 damage. I think I'm probably just going to end my turn there. Because, yeah, that could be a mirror entity, could be a counter spell. I mean, it could even be an ice block, and we wouldn't know about it until we got right down to low health. But it's hard to tell. It's probably going to be a mirror entity, though. That's what I'm expecting. So I don't really want to play any of my spell damage minions, because then that will give him a benefit. I mean, I do have a polymorph, so anything that does crop up I could polymorph. I think I'm probably just going to polymorph this guy, though. And we'll play... Well, we'll find out if it's a counter spell. It's a counter spell. Bugger. Well, that didn't go to plan. Well, at least we know it's not a mirror entity.
Job done.
Okay, that was pretty well played on his part. A little bit annoyed now. I was pretty confident that it was a mirror entity. But these are the things. That's why they're secrets, because you don't know what they are. Yeah, he's probably just going to hit me straight for that. Yeah. And now we're not in a good position. Okay. What have we got? 4. Well, I can fireball this guy and get rid of him. I probably should have put my... Damn it. Mistakes were made. I should have put the mana worm out first.
Job done.
I should have put the mana worm out first because it would have got a buff from using the fireball. Not going well.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Oh, really? Well, that was pretty lucky. Okay. Okay, right, well, let's get the Kobold Geomancer out. We'll use Arcane Explosion to get rid of that. And then we'll just ping him for 1.
Job's done.
Don't want him having cheaper spells. If I can't have cheaper spells, he can't have cheaper spells. Although he's already had some that were cheaper, so. It's not the best start to the game. Not by any means, but we shall see. We shall see what happens. It's still, I mean, it's turn 7 and neither of us are in a position where we can defeat the other at any moment, so I think we should be okay. He has got a lot of cards though. I don't like that. Okay. Okie dokie. Well, we have 8 to play with. Think I'm gonna get out the water elemental, and he could have a flame strike. So I think I'm probably just gonna ping one of these for 1, hit that one for 2, and then end it. Yeah, I'm reluctant to get anything out now because he might have a flame strike in his deck, in his hand, sorry. In which case, if I just put out a ton of minions, he's just going to flame strike them all in one go. So I shall try and keep minimal minions on the field so that I don't lose all of them in one go. Uh, 6 health is quite awkward to get rid of, so he might have to polymorph it, yeah. That's what I was expecting. Okay. I'm going to pull out the Azure Drake because I could do with the extra card. That can get rid of that. And I think we shall fireball him for 7. We'll end the turn. Okay. Well, that's one of his polymorphs gone. We know that much. He may choose to polymorph this Azure Drake as well, in which case Malagos will be a lot more difficult for him to get rid of. He will have to use a oh no, he's freezing it. Okay. And Ice Lance? No Ice Lance. But we do have another secret. Okay. Oh, cool. Let's... okay, first things first, let's attack into him Right. Chances are then it might be another counter spell. So I think if we use the Frostbolt and find out. It's not. In which case it could be a mirror entity then. So I'm not going to play a minion this turn. I'm just going to pass the turn. It's not an ice barrier, because that would have given him armor. It's not a counter spell. So my next guess is that it's a mirror entity. So ideally I don't want to play anything that's going to benefit him. I mean, that's what I would play. I'd play a mirror entity and the counter spells. They're the two best ones. Or the vaporize. It's not a vaporize because we've already established that it's not. Okay, so let's get rid of both of his taunt things with Arcane Explosion. And we can... Oh, crap. I could have just... Oh, no. Because he still would have been only on 2 health. He won't want to trade. I'm going to hit him for 1. I really want to find out what that secret is, but I'm reluctant to I'm reluctant to put my Ogre Magi down because that will give him an extra spell power. I certainly don't want to play Malagos. That would just be a really dumb idea. Okay. Okay. What to do? We could Pyroblast him. That'll take him down to 4. And then we could Fireblast would take him down to 3 health. But then that'll be my turn over. He'll hit me for 4, 7, 8. He could hit if he's got a Pyroblast as well. That could finish me off.
Hello.
In which case we kind of need to get rid of this guy. So let's do that. Yes. Right. Okay.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Desperately need to get a minion on the field though. Okay. That'll do 1 damage, so if I ping that to that, and this does 3 damage. Well, let's do that, and let's hit her for 3.
Job done.
Takes her down to 11.
You know they can.
I can win next turn if I Pyroblast and Fireblast. That will win. What I'm going to do first is Pyroblast, because in case it's the ice block.
Job's done.
Yep. Ice block. But she's still on 1 health, so... It's unusual. I don't see many people using the ice block. Wait, why would you do that? There you go. Okay, it's not the best example, but we did win. And we still have 17 health. So it wasn't the best example of how I'd like to play this deck. But it does show you that even if you don't have a good start, you can still win a game. And I got some gold. Hooray! So there you go. That is the very high MMR Blast deck. I shall put a link in the description that will take you to the Hearthstone website and the deck list for this deck. Thank you to Tiber for posting this. I've had a lot of fun with this deck, and it's been really good. It's been one of the strongest decks I think I've played, especially in Masters ranking. The low cost Warlock deck was good, but it doesn't seem to be as consistent in Masters as this has been. So if you've got access to these cards, as I say, you can swap Malagos out. You don't have to have Malagos. You could put in another Archmage if you don't have Malagos. You just put in another Archmage card instead, or even if you don't have Blood Mage Thalnos. The Pyroblasts are quite a necessity though to this deck to make it as good as it is. But I think essentially the Pyroblasts are the only cards really that are of any. I mean, the Azure Drakes obviously are rares, but I think the rest of the cards are pretty much standard cards. So it's only really the Azure Drakes. If you can get 2 Azure Drakes and 2 Pyroblasts, then you're pretty much good to go with this deck. So there we go. I hope you have fun playing this deck. I have had a blast with it, if you'll pardon the pun. And if you let me know how you get on if you do play this deck, and if you make any videos, link them to me, or if it's still possible to make video responses. So many things change on YouTube, it's hard to keep up. If you do make a video, leave it as a video response or link me to it. Follow me on Twitter if you want to link me to something. You can do it via that, and I look forward to seeing how you get on. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.